Hey guys, welcome back to our intro to Node.js and Express tutorial series here on Turbo 360. In the previous video, we set up some dynamic requests using the URL request string as well as URL request parameters. And in doing so, we also created a couple new pages which can be rendered through those dynamic requests, specifically the About and the Contact page. So let's go ahead and run the app, the site, and make sure everything still works properly, and then we can pick up where we left off. So here I am on the contact page. We also have an about page where we use the URL path parameter to render a different page. Of course, we still have the home page here, and everything looks the same as where we left off, so we're good to go. So in this video, we're going to add some styling to these pages, try to make them look a little bit nicer. We're going to start adding a CSS framework, the Bootstrap CSS framework. And along the way, we're going to learn about how static assets are managed in a Node-Express project. So a static asset, or static assets in general, are files like images, CSS files, JavaScript files, PDF documents, video, audio, things like that. These are all considered static assets, and they are managed differently in a Node-Express project. They're typically stored under one directory. Sometimes that directory is called assets or public or static. Those are all typical names for the directory. In our case, the name is public. So if I head back here and turn off the server, you'll see that we already have a folder called public. And this is where the static assets are stored in our project. So if we open this up, you'll see we already have a couple things already in there. Most notably the folders for the most common types of static assets, CSS, images, and JavaScript. So if we open these up, you'll see there's stuff already in here. We're not going to use most of this, but we will use this image right now so you can see how to render it on a HTML template. So if I want to render this Turbo PNG logo image, I can create an IMG tag, and the IMG tag has a src attribute, which is essentially a reference to the file path of the static asset of the image. So we do /images and then the name of the file. Now an important thing to note here is that we do not include the name of the overall static folder public. In other words, we do not do this. This would be wrong. We actually don't want to include it because the entire site, the entire project already knows that all static assets are in the public directory. So it's implicit, it's already there, it's sort of already there. So if we add it again, it'll actually not work. It'll look for a file that doesn't exist. So that's the most important thing to take away here, and all static assets will follow that paradigm in this in a Node-Express environment. So if I run the server again, and head over to the contact page, I will now see the Turbo image. And that's the static asset, the static file right here is the same image. You could even open up the project itself to confirm that. If you open this up and then public images and then that, you'll see the same image being rendered right there. That's essentially how you manage and deal with all static assets in a Node-Express project. So what we're going to do next is add another static asset for the CSS framework for Bootstrap that we're about to add. So let's go ahead and turn off the server, and if you open up the CSS folder, you'll see we already have a Bootstrap CSS file that comes with the scaffold. They just sort of give it to you for free. We're not going to use this because it's actually outdated, so we're going to create a new one right here called bootstrap.min.css. So we just created a new CSS file in the CSS directory. Of course, it's empty. And we're going to head over to bootstrapcdn.com. So open this up in a new tab and copy the CSS, the first CSS link right here. Just copy that. And this is the most up-to-date version of Bootstrap. And then open a new tab and just head over to that URL, and you're going to see the Bootstrap library for the most recent version. So all we need to do is highlight this whole thing and copy it. So just Command A, Command C, and head over back to your bootstrap.min.css and just paste all that in. And now we have a more up-to-date version of Bootstrap 4.5.2 versus the other one, which is 3.3. So this is what we want. So we are good to go to start using this guy. So head back to the contact template, and just like the image, we want to import the CSS file, but this time it's called a link. And a link has an href, which is basically the same as the src. It's just a reference to the file path. So we do CSS and then bootstrap.min.css, close the tag. We have to specify that this is a style sheet. Otherwise, the browser won't really know what to do with it. You don't have to add this part, but it's probably a good idea to say this is a text document, CSS document. And this should be good enough to start using the Bootstrap CSS framework in this particular page. So if we run the server again, and head back to localhost 3000/contact, you'll notice that it looks a little bit different now. That's because it's now using the Bootstrap CSS library, the CSS framework. So if I turn off the server, oh, this shouldn't be here, sorry. So you probably didn't have this. That shouldn't be there. So run it again. So you probably saw this instead. It looks like this. That's how it should look. And this is, it looks mostly the same, but a little bit different in the font. And that's because the Bootstrap CSS framework is applying its own styles to this. So what we want to do is start using the Bootstrap library to add some design here. So if you go back to here, the Bootstrap CDN, you can click on this link right here, getbootstrap.com, and that'll take you to all the Bootstrap sort of library of widgets and things that you can use visually. In our case, we're going to use something called the navbar. So if you go to documentation and then components and then navbar, here they just give you a couple samples of navbars that you can use right away. So I am going to use this one and just copy this. And all these classes and whatnot, these are already in the Bootstrap framework, so we can just go ahead and copy and paste it right away. So head back into your template and just paste it right beneath the body tag. Let's be mindful of our spacing, and let's see what we get when we reload. And there's our navbar. Let's actually use one with a few more options. Let's use one with some links. So here is a nav with some links. So I'm going to copy this instead, like that. Just highlight that and copy that, and then remove the previous nav, and then just paste the new one. Again, be mindful of your spacing, and then head back to the contact, and now we have some hyperlinks. So let's go ahead and start filling this out. So where it says navbar here, it's going to say the name of your site. So let's just call it my first site. The href, we're going to just link that to the home page, and then we have two other pages. We have the about and the contact, right? So we can do here where it says home, let's change that, the href, to /about, and let's change that to about. Actually, I'm going to remove this entirely. Let's just remove that. Let's change this to about, and then /about, and then let's change this one to contact, and then contact. And this last link right here, the disabled one, just remove it and save the file. And then let's reload. And now we have my first site, and then about and contact. And notice how these links are now linked to the pages that we had created in the previous video, including the home page. So this is a good way to add some quick styling onto your templates. And let's go ahead and get rid of this. A couple more quick classes you can use in Bootstrap. If I want to have a div right here and place the image in the div, I can apply a class called container, and that'll give me some quick padding around the margins right away. It's kind of hard to see, but if I remove the container class, you'll see the difference. So if I reload, it just moves it off to the side. This is the contact page. So what we're going to do next is add a contact form. So let's add a form right here. And a form is basically a series of input fields that users can fill out and then send data back to the server. And those are called inputs. Each field is called an input. These are text type inputs. We can put a placeholder. Let's say your name. And then let's use a bootstrap class called form control. This is a class provided by Bootstrap, which gives you some styling right away. And if you see that, it'll give you an input all the way across like that. Let's add a couple more. So let's add what's called a line break right here, which is just the next line. So, and then just paste another one, your email, and then let's see how that looks. Your name, your email, and then let's do one more. Let's see, let's call this, instead of an input, let's do text area, which is kind of like the same as an input, but it gives you room to type basically entire paragraphs if you want. And then same class. And then placeholder message. See here, you can just type in a lot of stuff rather than just one line. So that's the difference between an input and a text area. And then finally, we're going to have a send. I want to use a button here. Let's do a button. And let's use another Bootstrap class called btn, and then btn success, send message. And this gives us some quick styling right away. Let's add some margin between the text area and the button. That will be a margin top, so that will be MT, stands for margin top, and let's give it, this goes I think 1 through 5, and so we're going to go a little bit over halfway. Let's give it one more, 1 through 4. Okay, and so now we have a very simple field, a form field with which we can send data back to the server, which we will do in the next video. But the main takeaway here in this video is how to work with static assets, in this case specifically CSS files and image files right here. That's it. That's pretty straightforward. In the next video, we're going to actually add functionality to this contact form, and we're going to send data back to our server with the data that's populated in these input fields. So hopefully you got everything working, and thanks for watching.